Here is the story of the Black Seminoles, a group of fugitive slaves who escaped bondage. In the early 1700s, when what we know as America began to take shape, some Gullah Geechee slaves were able to escape slavery more than 150 years before the start of the Civil War. These fugitive slaves fled south into the Florida Peninsula from coastal South Carolina and Georgia. At the time, Florida, which was owned by the Spanish, was nothing more than a swampy jungle. The Spanish offered escaped slaves and renegade Indians a refuge from the onslaught of American tyranny. By the late 1700s, the Gullahs and some Native Americans established their own free settlements in Florida. The Gullahs adopted the ways of the natives, while the natives found joy in Gullah music and folklore. The Gullah also taught the natives how to survive Florida's harsh malaria-ridden swamps. They would eventually be dubbed Seminole Negroes or the Black Seminoles by American settlers. The Black Seminole culture that took shape after 1800 was a dynamic mixture of African, Native American, Spanish, and slave traditions. In addition, the language of the Black Seminoles is a mix of African, Seminole, and Spanish words. The African heritage of the Black Seminoles, according to academics, is from the Congo, Yoruba, and other African ethnic groups. Initially living apart from the Native Americans, the Maroons developed their own unique African American culture. Black Seminoles inclined toward a syncretic form of Christianity developed during the plantation years. As time progressed, the Seminole and blacks had limited intermarriage, but historians and anthropologists have come to believe that generally the Black Seminoles had independent communities. They allied with the Seminole at times of war. As a result, the Black Seminoles born to slave mothers were always at risk from slave raiders. By the start of the 1800s, as word spread of a free settlement from blacks and Native Americans, the Black Seminole settlements began to grow rapidly, which frightened America's white elite. America would spend the next 20 years trying to destroy any resistance to the expansion of their white supremacy rule. According to Yale Research, in 1818, General Andrew Jackson, later president, led an American army into Florida to rid the state and the Black Seminoles and claim it for the United States. Blacks and Native Americans fought side by side against Jackson's troops, but ultimately lost and were forced to flee into the more remote wilderness of central and southern Florida. This was known as the Indian and Negro War, or the First Seminole War. The United States took control of Florida in 1821. In 1835, the Second Seminole War began, which led to the death of more than 1,500 American soldiers. The Black Seminoles fought American troops for 6 years, fearing that if they lost they would be killed or sent back to slavery. In 1842, American troops forcibly removed the Black Seminoles and Native Americans from Florida and moved them to Indian Territory, while in Oklahoma, slave owners tried to regularly kidnap their women and children and put them back in bondage. In 1850, a group of Black Seminoles and natives fled south across Texas to the deserts of northern Mexico to evade white settlers looking for their fugitive slaves. They established a free settlement in Mexico, which began to attract more slaves from the Northern American settlements. According to some historians, before the Civil War, around 3,000 to 5,000 fugitive slaves ran away to Mexico. These descendants of Black American slaves were eventually known as the Mascogos. Today, the largest number of descendants of the Black Seminoles live on Andros Island, in the Bahamas. The next time we celebrate our ancestors and their tribulations in finding freedom in America, let's not forget about the fugitive slaves who fled south instead of north.